Okay, imagine this. You are on your way to earning a PhD from Harvard, on top of the world. And then suddenly you get a high fever that won't go away. Soon you're so tired, you cannot even get out of bed or even move. That is what happened to Jennifer Brea. And the worst part of it was her doctors told her it was all in her head. And then she recorded some of her struggle. This was Jennifer Brea before her diagnosis, a young woman whose smile could light up a room, with big dreams for the future, and a husband to whom she pays tribute in her documentary, Unrest.
That's my husband, Omar. I met him when I was 25. We were both at Harvard, getting our PhDs. 3 months later, I knew I wanted to marry him.
Then one day, Jennifer got a fever of nearly 105 degrees. And in the years after, she spent most of her time in bed. Often in pain and unable to walk, she says she felt like she died, but was forced to watch as the years moved on.
You have chronic fatigue, ME. You're in that percentage of people who are severely disabled.
Through it all, Omar never left her side.
What's impossible to capture is just how hard this is day in, day out. I just feel like our lives are frozen in this kind of sickness amber.
This illness destroyed my life, but what it showed me, I could never give that back. I want to be well, and yet I am grateful for every inch of my life. I am still here. I am still here.
Jennifer Brea and her husband Omar Wasow, a former NBC tech reporter, are here with us now. And also joining us is NBC News medical contributor, Dr. Natalie Azar. Thank you. Jennifer, you two met at Harvard. You were fine. You were not somebody who was chronically ill, right?
I was totally healthy. I was someone who loved to climb mountains and travel and really had my whole life ahead of me.
So then, and you're sitting this way because it's more comfortable for you, it's better for you.
Yeah.
But, so you get the high fever, and then describe the fatigue that you felt after the fact.
So fatigue is almost not the right word. For me, it was like I had this broken battery that would only ever charge to 5 or 10%. And if I went past my limit, I would crash and sometimes not even be able to lift my head or move.
You go to the doctor, and the doctor says, you're fine, right? You're at Harvard. You're working too hard. At what point into this do you realize it's not that?
Well, I kept going to my doctor, and I think because the lab results, the test results kept coming back normal, he said that I wasn't really sick, or maybe that it was just in my head, or that I was stressed. And I think it was only once I was completely bedridden that I realized, okay, something really isn't right here, and started to seek out help from specialists.
Is it an autoimmune issue?
So we don't know yet if it is. They're starting to find evidence of autoimmunity, and 80% of those affected are women, and that's common in a lot of different autoimmune diseases, so it's possible that it is.
Do we call it chronic fatigue syndrome?
So that's one name for it. Another name is myalgic encephalomyelitis, which is a bit of a tongue twister, or ME/CFS.
The problem with this is people, you know, even in the audience to some extent, will say it's in her head, it's psychosomatic, right? If you can't get a medical diagnosis saying, here is the cellular issue, or here is the exact blood test that shows something, it must be very frustrating.
Well, the reality is that there are a lot of abnormalities that you can find in a lab. So researchers are finding a lot about the disease. The challenge is that it hasn't quite translated into medical practice yet, and doctors really haven't been trained to diagnose or recognize the illness.
Omar, I know that you said you feel fine when you're together, but it's when other people start feeling sorry for you that you get upset.
Well, what's been hard about this in some ways is that I've been leading a kind of double life. So I love Jen deeply, and I'm a caregiver, and then I go to work and I have to maintain a facade at some level that everything's okay. And so part of the gift of being more public about this is that I get to kind of braid my life back together and be more whole.
Dr. Azar, this is an actual problem for 1 million people in this country.
I think it's probably underdiagnosed as well. It's difficult for me, from my perspective, as a medically trained individual, Western trained, excellent institutions, and I spoke to Omar and Jen before the segment about this. I didn't even really have an understanding of what ME/CFS really was until I was sort of forced into not just this week, but just in my practice to really understand what it is. So I think if I, as a medical professional who sees patients with elusive diseases sometimes, fibromyalgia and lupus and things like that, that even I wasn't fully aware.
How do you know the difference between I am just exhausted
Exactly.
and this?
And what really is the cardinal symptom of ME/CFS is this thing that's called post-exertional malaise. So this is not I wake up and I kind of feel tired, I'm stressed, and I have and not to discount regular fatigue, which can have other underlying medical reasons for it, but it's actually this, and again, we don't know exactly what's going on here, what causes it, but a lot of work is being done about what interplay between genes and immunology and inflammation and metabolism and neurology that people will literally, rather than feeling better or refreshed when they exert themselves mentally or physically, they crash. Just as Jen said, I think it's the most apt description is that she's at a battery that's 5 or 10%. Yep. You exert, you crash.
What's one of the beautiful things about you doing this documentary from her bed, I mean, directing this from her bed, is that she wanted to call attention to this issue and get more research going, and that is now starting to happen. That is now starting to happen. And Unrest, this documentary, is in select theaters right now. It's going to be coming to iTunes next month. Thank you both so much.
Thank you so much.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.